Welcome everybody, whatever time zone or time stream you're joining us from across the world or across the universe. Let's see what's going on here. Yes, check that setting, just one moment. I've just remembered that my microphone sometimes plays up on here. There we are. That's better. Yes, where was I? I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks, and this is Type 40 Live with you on a Tuesday afternoon, beaming across social media. Yes, we're on Facebook, we're on the Type 40 Facebook page and the Type 40 Facebook group. Over on the YouTube channel, of course, we are. Hello, YouTube. Hello, everybody in YouTube land. We'll get to your comments in a moment. And this is the Spacebook, the best channel that you'd never heard of, and the home of Type 40, which is our Doctor Who brand, our Doctor Who wave of content coming your way. We've got podcasts, we've got videos and live streams. Heaven knows how many we've done now. But sit back, get some jelly babies to one side, maybe your favorite paperback, one of those sedan chairs. Sedan, not McGann. Cheers. And yeah, enjoy. Share your memories with us. We're going right back 25 years, specifically for the bulk of this special show, this special live stream, back to a time when football was coming home, where everybody was a sort of wannabe, weren't they? And when it finally became cool to tell people you were going train spotting. Who'd have thought? That was a long time coming, wasn't it? But let's put on some of all this jazz. Yes, while I remember, please, if you're here now, I've already been forward into the future, you see. So you can like this video. It's going to be a good one. Please like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you've got a minute. Hit the little red button and hit the bell too. Hit the cloister bell so the next time we go live, you'll be the very first to know about it. Not impending disaster, just great content, good conversation, and lots of geeky Doctor Who talk. Put that on up there. There it is. Absolute magic. Absolute magic. So yes, that's me sorted out. Who are you? Who's with us now? Oh, Megan Eurobyte says hype. Hype to you too. That must be a good thing. And we've got the geek inside. Bring on that hunk of sexy man. Oh, Paul McGann. Well, Paul's not here. You're stuck with me, geek inside. Welcome back. Welcome back to 1986. Says Starry-Eyed Girl. Now, she's going to be late. She's supposed to be on the show. So she's 10 years earlier than the rest of us. It could be a while we wait for her to get in the right time zone. Greetings. Can't watch live today, but we'll be catching up later, says Darren Powis. But he's commented too, full of time travelers watching on YouTube. Absolutely marvelous. Everybody taking it all in. Obviously, Time Lords in training. Okay. Yes. So has she made it? Let's see if we can find out. Let's take stock. Yes, there she is. Back from 2021 via 1986. It's Starry-Eyed Girl. Hello.
You can't be typing in the chat. Yeah, that was a typo.
Talking to your public, of course.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
You've been looking forward to this one?
I have. Obviously, I'm an 80s child, but obviously I grew up in the 90s.
Yeah, she never mentions it, everybody. She never mentions it.
So yeah, this is my era. This is really exciting. And I just can't believe it's 25 years.
No. 25 years since Doctor Who came screeching back to TV, wasn't it? It was after 7 years stuck in a time eddy. It came back glossier, longer, mostly, certainly faster, and this time with tongues. Ooh, did you see that? People didn't like that. I'm sure we'll get round to that in a little while. But yes, this is our celebration cum review of the Fox and BBC co-production of Doctor Who, heralding a new Doctor and restoring hope to legions of fans here in America, Australia, and in Canada, where it was filmed, of course, where they actually finally made the thing, and we'll be eternally grateful to the Canadians because of it, for giving Doctor Who a home, even if it was just for, I think they were filming it for about 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah, so all that's to come. We've got to bring in everybody else. I thought we'd start with setting the feel of 1996, though, Sarah. And specifically the sights and the sounds. So you'll have been very young at this time. So do you remember any of this? She's laughing already.
I remember all of it, yeah.
So you've got Mark Morrison there at the top corner. These were the big 4 records in the UK charts at the time.
Yes,
So we've got Mark Morrison with Return of the Mac, which I absolutely loved.
Mm-hmm.
The Tony Rich Project. Do you remember that one? I think he was a bit of a one-hit wonder, that guy. Yeah. George Michael was number 1 with Fast Love. And Gina G there was... she was something to do with the Eurovision Song Contest company. I don't know if she won or was she our
she
entry?
was our entry. We came 3rd, but she ended up, it catapulted her to stardom and she ended up being number 1 and having her own pop career. Because I followed her for quite a while.
Well, look, who needs Gina G when we've got a JT? we've sort of got him.
Hello. Here I am reading my movie special here to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Paul McGann TV movie. Hello, everybody. Hi, Facebookers.
Hello, mate. Yes, it was a pocket money friendly, wasn't it? That was a Panini thing. They put that out, didn't they?
They did, because this was supposed to be a friendly introduction to Doctor Who and therefore a rebirth for the magazine, because it was a spin-off from the magazine. And inside it, it's basically the same as you would get in one of the sort of annuals that they churn out today. It's an introduction to the TARDIS. It's an introduction to the characters. It's got a back history of the Doctor. They always do this, don't they? The previous faces of the Doctor. In that case, there were 7, of course. So we've got all that there. But that was hoping to introduce a new audience into the show, as the TV movie was supposed to, and therefore push them onto the magazine. So it was $1.99 in 1996.
And to distract them as well from all this glorious pop rock music fabulous. That was around at the time. Does this bring back some memories for you too?
Well, the 90s is a bit of a blur, I have to be honest, because all I did was work and party. But the music is I'm very fond of, but my knowledge goes so far.
Well, let's check in with one of the younger fraternity and see what Barnaby Jago makes of this. Was this something that you put on the jukebox at all, Barnaby? Any of these tunes? Any favourites here?
I'm afraid I was way too young to get any of these. I'm afraid. I
thought you were going to say something like that.
Around about that sort of time. Yeah, I was about 6 or 7 years old. So not quite.
Not even Gina G. You don't remember that? The old.
Even now, I don't know who that is. I'm afraid. Is that Cardi B? Is that Cardi B or Montero or one of those sort of ones?
I think it could be for the best that you don't remember that one myself. How about you, Simon? Any of these bring back any memories for you?
Ooh, just a little bit. Ooh, a little bit more. Ooh, just a little bit. You know what I'm looking for. There you go. That's how it went, Barnaby.
It went something like that, anyway.
I don't think I've heard that version. Yeah.
You were 6 at the time that Gina G came. I feel so old. Horrible. I don't think we should allow Barnaby on these chats. Just bring him on to make us feel old, Dan.
I did love Return of the Mac, the old Mark Morrison tune.
No.
It's one of those sort of soul-ish kind of tracks.
I kind of stop. About 1985, I stop. My iPod just ends at 1985, and I'm quite happy with that. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, that's one thing to talk about the iPod, but what about your movie collection? What about the movies? Let's take a look at some of the movies from 1996 and bring in our movie expert, our movie director, writer, and producer, Ian David Diaz, the Mega Geek.
Hello.
Hey, hello, mate. So, would you believe it, Ian? 1996. These were some of the big movies of May 1996. Does this bring back any memories for you?
I went to see all of them apart from Barbed Wire. Saw Barbed Wire on TV, which was absolutely awful. But the other two were okay, actually.
I remember Twister so well. Twister's got one of my favourite lines in movie history that I still churn out every so often, which is, "We got debris," when we've got Bill there's a cow swinging around. "We got debris." Fantastic.
I thought it was about the game. The Twister game. It wasn't. It wasn't.
I can't believe that film's 25 years old. I mean, Mission Impossible has just been re-released on Blu-ray, so I knew that was 25 years old. But that's a really iconic film, isn't it? As for Barbed Wire, I've never seen it all the way through. I've only ever managed 10 minutes of it. I don't know what that is.
It's meant to be a remake of Casablanca, apparently.
What?
It's meant to be, seriously. It's meant to be a remake.
Wire. Yeah.
Yes, a remake of Casablanca.
Oh, he's perked up. He remembers this one.
Yes, I do remember Barbed Wire.
Whatever happened to Big Pam? What happened to her?
She's big and she disappeared, yeah. But she's still around.
Yeah, she recently married her bodyguard, I think. Does any of that ring a bell to anybody? Yeah, and Mission Impossible is certainly a bit of a classic, isn't it, Barnaby? You must have seen that.
So young in that film, Tom Cruise. It was so young in that film. It's ridiculous.
Twister as well, I remember really vividly as well. Twister, I remember it being quite good, but it's on Netflix now. It's not quite as good as I remember.
Well, I think if Twister had never been made, ITV2 would never have a film to show. They'd be down to one. They'd be down to Bridget Jones' Diary. Those are the two films that they've got. Let's check in with the chat and see if they're stirred by all this talk of 1996. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, says Lord Thoth. I don't know where I'd be without Lord Thoth, but
Lord
people here, Story Girl, it wouldn't be 1996 without the return of the Mac. I agree.
I did
don't know what happened to
him.
People bringing the memories. I still remember watching the TV movie in my bedroom, age 17, and I still have my VHS recording from BBC One.
Wow.
You know, that's dedication. Still giving that
adverts as well. That'd be awesome.
house space. Good morrow, Dan, says Megan Eurobyte. And Richard Brooks says, I can't believe it's been 25 years. It seems like yesterday sometimes.
My knees always tell me that it's 25 years since the film. My knees and my arms. Yeah.
People do rub it in. People do rub it in, don't they?
Dad, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned the second most important thing apart from the TV movie.
Oh, okay. What's this?
Take that splitting up.
Oh, yeah.
Was that 96?
And the helpline.
That's what was going on in my world.
Is that where what it was all about?
For everybody that was traumatized by them splitting up, I remember that.
Did you ring that? Did you ring that one, Sarah?
I did it, but I had my cousin was very inconsolable.
There's a lot of it about it. It made the newspapers, did it? Talking about making the newspapers. I think before we get we've got some more people here. We've got Queen Charlotte's here in the chat. She says hello all. And the garbage says the space video quality is a bit max headroom. What do you mean?
I think he means you.
Am I juddering? Am I juddering a little still?
It's that lovely little halo you've got around you.
I'm doing it deliberately in honour of Peter Wagg, who I think was one of the producers.
He was, yes,
on the Doctor Who TV movie. How's that for a connection? There we go. Somebody else is back in 1986 watching The Trial of a Time Lord instead. People comparing how old they were. I think we can keep that to ourselves, can't we? Let's not rub that in too much. The Geek Inside. So this is Neil. He says, hard to believe it's been 25 years. I was working in Ottawa then, no cable, so a friend recorded it for me. That's when I also found out John Pertwee had passed away. Yeah, the timing of that, because when it was on television, correct me if I'm wrong, Simon, they had a caption on the television screening, didn't they?
Yeah,
paying tribute to John Pertwee?
Yeah, because we talked about this last week, poor old John Pertwee passing. And it was literally a couple of 3 days before the transmission. And the very first thing you see is a little caption card that dedicates the film to John Pertwee. I mean, what a beautiful way to do that. That I can't think of any better way of doing that. That they at least acknowledged it. Yeah. It would have felt odd ignoring it.
Was that just for the BBC, Simon?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. JT, did they put it on America as well? No, they can't, because America got it before Britain.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a request from Phil to the BBC to do that.
I'm not certain. I don't know. Is it on the DVD? I can't quite think whether it's on the DVD and the Blu-ray. I'm not certain now. I can't quite remember. I would hope it is, because to me it's part of the movie. And I remember seeing that, and it just immediately warmed me to the movie. I immediately wanted to like the movie because I thought, okay, if you can at least acknowledge something as key as that and link what is happening today to what was happening all those years ago, I total respect for you. And I immediately, it gave you a warm fuzzy feeling before it had even started. So it was a perfect decision to do.
The Americans got it before us, though, didn't they? The Americans got it.
Yeah,
before
Americans got
us.
it.
Everybody got it before us.
It was
Did the
because
Americans even know what it was? Did the Americans even know what was going on?
They didn't.
well,
It was billed as a Thursday night movie, and they did have an EPK on it. And what was fascinating about the EPK is when they were showing clips, they showed the clip from the Doctor Who episode with Colin, with who's the Doctor with who's the Doctor? Oh God, my brain's gone on freeze. What's the one when the Doctor was on trial? When he was on trial,
Colin Bacon, Trial of the Time Lord.
They showed the special effects bit in the beginning where the
That's right.
when
it comes to space station.
because that effects were really good for its time, so they put that in the trailer for the Paul McGann film. So
explain to people for us, Ian, what's an EPK in the industry? What does that mean?
Press kit. Electronic press. Basically, it's for the press. So they'll send these VHSs out, and it'll have all interviews with all the stars in the film.
I have one.
Yeah, it's also for TV stations as well. So if TV stations are reporting on it, they can bring up an interview with say Sylvester McCoy when they're asking him questions on it, and they can just have him talk. And they could put some questions, or they can shoot a presenter pretending to ask him questions. Do you know what I mean? Pretending he was there asking him questions. So it's just a press kit, really, for the.
And then shoot Sylvester later on. Then shoot Sylvester in the chest.
Yeah.
I can see here in the chat, Mega the Extremist is saying that apparently that caption is not on the Blu-ray or DVD. That's terrible. How can you not include that little caption? I'm also looking as well. Disaster Area claims that there's Falco had a number 1 in 1996. No, I think you're thinking 1986. There, Disaster Area. That's Rock Me Amadeus from '86. That's Sarah's domain.
I just want to say thank you to Garbage. You're the only person who seems to have got my gag earlier on. So unless the others got it and just thought it was so juvenile, they ignored it, not to encourage me, which I don't blame them whatsoever. So thanks for that. That long Dan. We've got all the confessions. All the confessions this afternoon. We've got from Sadako says that I dated a girl whose friend nearly jumped off a balcony over the Take That split.
Oh my
so
God.
it obviously cut deep for people, and lots of people talking about the memories of John Pertwee, losing John Pertwee. If he was your Doctor, it obviously would have made the premiere of the movie bittersweet, wouldn't it? As we were saying last week. And talking about last week, yes. We loved it. We hope you did too. And we're going to do it again now. Simon, I think, have you got the old 500-year diary?
Yes. You sprang that on me, yes.
Yes, so we're gonna go back in time again now, even further, very, very quickly for on this day, for the 25th of May. And here's the stinger.
Is that it? Am I on? Right. Okay. Now then, we're actually. I'm going to expand this out a little bit for this week in history as well as this day. And one of the main reasons for this is because actually on Thursday, i.e. in 2 days' time, it will be 54 years since we saw episode 2 of The Evil of the Daleks. And Evil of the Daleks is one of my favourite episodes from that era. It's one of those, for me, it doesn't disappoint in that you can see. I remember when Tomb of the Cybermen was discovered and the Ice Warriors, and I finally got to see those, and I kind of thought, okay, those weren't quite as good as I'd been led to believe. Whereas for me, Evil of the Daleks absolutely doesn't disappoint. I think it's a cracking episode. Yeah. And Evil of the Daleks, this particular episode, as I say, number 2, that was shown on Thursday 54 years ago, was one of the sort of earliest episodes to come back to the fold, as it were. It was missing for years, and it was one of the earliest missing episodes to be recovered. And the story of how it was discovered and how it came back to the BBC is a really fascinating one. So I'm just going to put that into a little a synopsis for Prezi. It was found by a guy called Gordon Hendry, who, believe it or not, bought it at a car boot sale in 1983. For Americans out there, car boot sale is like a garage sale. And Gordon Hendry bought it in 1983 from his car boot sale, along with the Faceless Ones episode 3, which was also missing. And he managed to get this. He managed to knock the guy down, the guy that was selling these 2 episodes on film. Gordon Hendry managed to knock him down from £12 to £8. What a bargain. But Gordon Hendry had absolutely no idea that these episodes were rare or were missing from the BBC. So he was just sitting on these episodes and he was playing them on his own projector. And it has to be said, ruining them. He was ruining the film every time he played it in his projector. But then we leap forward. How did he get back to the BBC? Because he didn't know that they were missing. We leap forward to 1985, and a guy called Saeed Marham turns up at Dwos's Panopticon convention in Brighton and asks to speak to the convention event organisers because he's got knowledge of 2 missing episodes that his friend, in inverted commas, wants to show at a cinema in that weekend and charge £2 for tickets for. And he wants Dwas to advertise it to the convention attendees. And Dwas are a little bit sceptical about this, quite understandably. And they say, okay, we're clearly going to need proof of these missing episodes. And immediately, pretty much, Marham says it's cancelled, the screening is cancelled. And that's it. That's the end of the story, you would think. But Marham contacted the BBC about the same thing through a very, very long and convoluted process. This came to a couple of mates of mine. The news came from a couple of mates of mine, which is Mick Smallman and Paul Venesis. They heard about this, that these rumoured 2 returned episodes, tried to contact Marham. Marham was just very quiet about the whole thing and didn't really say much about it. That you'd think would be the end of that. No, we leap forward now to April 1987. And Paul Venesis, Mick Smallman and Richard Molesworth of the restoration team at that time were putting together a convention called Telecon in Birmingham, which I was at, I'm delighted to say. Paul Venesis contacted Saeed Marham about these episodes that he claimed to know the whereabouts to. 2 days before Telecon, 2 episodes on VHS turn up on Paul Venesis' doorstep. The Faceless Ones, episode 3. Literally on his doorstep. Mailed through the post. Even the Daleks, episode 2, just arrived unannounced through his letterbox. So we've gone from 1983, 4 years later, to 1987. These episodes actually then get to Paul Venesis, who is able to show the Faceless Ones at Telecon as a complete surprise. Nobody knew that it was about to be screened. So all convention attendees, of which I was one, just suddenly get the Faceless Ones episode 3, this missing episode, screened. I think actually Evil of the Daleks came back a few weeks later. So convolutedly, eventually then, the episodes then get back to the BBC, and that's how we come to have Evil of the Daleks, from a car boot sale in 1983 to finally in 1987, we get Evil of the Daleks back. So I think it's one of the most fascinating of all of the missing episode stories as to how it was found at a car boot sale and how it got to the BBC. This weird claim at a convention that there were missing episodes, and we could have lost them forever.
It's such a far cry, Simon, from nowadays. I mean, Barnaby and Sarah, you remember whenever it was 7-8 years ago when the last couple of episodes came back during the anniversary year, you remember how it all came onto iTunes and it was all the bunting went up across fandom, didn't it? Yeah. But this is a totally different story. How do you two feel about hearing that? Episodes just turning up through the post?
I love stories like that because that's so like a very sort of 80s sort of story. Like, I found it at a car boot sale and he didn't know what it was. So he just finds out later on that this is a huge piece of television history. Because it was, I remember back when they found, what was it, the Yeti one they found a couple of years ago in the tube. And that was a huge media thing about that. And I was very, very excited about it. And I went and it was Enemy of the World as well. They got those. And yeah, it was a huge thing, but just back then, just like, oh, that's such a cute story. I love it.
We'll drop them in the post them second class. Just keep you waiting a little bit longer.
It's quite terrifying to think that those episodes might never have come back, because say people
Yeah,
don't understand at the time. I've got these episodes and I want to charge £2 for you to watch them, for all your convention organisers, attendees to watch them. You can understand why they didn't believe it and why they might never have come back to the BBC. Can you imagine? And as I say, Evil of the Daleks is just a cracking episode.
What else is in the time-space visualizer this time?
Well,
what else have you got for
on this day in 2007, Freema was on Jonathan Ross publicising Series 3. Any love for Series 3 out there with Freema?
A lot of love for Freema in particular. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Freema. And yeah, I remember all the publicity for that. You know, they do that. They used to do that all the time, didn't they? Whichever new cast members would sort of join in. Even if they were only in it for a couple of weeks, they'd do the circuit when they BBC Breakfast and all those kind of shows.
I don't think they don't really publicity quite. So yeah, they don't do the publicity quite the same way. I've got a theory actually about Freema. I suspect that she was maybe pushed out. I think she would have been in Series 4, and I've got this theory that she was quietly pushed out at the end of Series 3 because I think Catherine Tate probably said, "Oh, do you know, I'd really like to be in Doctor Who," and they thought, "Whoa, yeah, we'll have Catherine Tate. Sorry, Freema, you've been great, but we've now got the offer of Catherine Tate, so thanks and goodbye." I don't know, could be completely wrong. I've always felt that
it worked out for her though, didn't it? Because she's really doing well in the States. So
yeah, she is.
That New Amsterdam show. Yeah, it's really, really popular. I mean, she was in Law. Was she in Law and Order as well?
Yeah,
yeah.
That would have been directly after Doctor Who, only a year or two later, wouldn't it, JT? Around that.
Yep. And she was with Bradley and Peter Davison.
Yeah, she didn't stay very long, did she? In Doctor Who, let's face it.
No,
she did the year. She was contracted for the year. It's all actually in the writer's tale. If anybody's got that, you can read that. And Russell explains that Martha was supposed to be a rebound character from Rose for the Doctor, and therefore that's why she only got the one series.
Right. I got
you. Russell felt that the character had sort of exhausted the story possibility. Well, the arc for her character possibilities. There's only so far you could take that unrequited love angle, which I suppose it could be.
Well, if you look at the episodes as well and read what Russell was writing in the writer's tale, it sort of is contained series, because she starts with this sort of, not infatuation as such, but with this, thing, and it is unrequited. But by the end, she saved the planet, she saved history. And she's a very accomplished young woman who has the ability to just say, right, sod you, goodbye.
Yeah.
But she also,
but still stay friends, because she gets called the next year.
But she also did that thing, the one where the Doctor, who's Mr. Smith, and he falls in love with that, and he was a teacher.
Yeah.
And he also,
Human nature.
I don't know how long she was there as one of the helpers, but she must have been there for a very long time. She did that for the Doctor, so she is quite loyal. And she went through a lot, didn't she? So it makes it one of the best and strongest companions for Doctor Who.
I think she's a really realistic character.
Underrated, and I think the shadow of Rose didn't help her really.
Well, it didn't, because they kept referring back.
Yeah, they did.
To Rose, and they did that for years, didn't they? I mean, just get over it. In our day, they would leave and they'd forget about them the next week. Who's this one? Okay, fine.
Yeah, if JT could go through the TV and grab the Doctor, he's like, "Get over it," and then he stepped out again.
Yeah, but nobody remembers Grace Holloway.
Yeah.
I've got what else?
We've got a couple of births. Today, Eric Deacon is 71 today. Happy birthday, Eric Deacon, who played Micros or Micros, is it, in Time Lash? I can never.
Oh God!
Yeah. This was the point at which I started to lose faith in the show. Once you got to the tinsel on Christmas tinsel on the walls, you begin to question. And there is the great Sir Ian McKellen, who is 82 today. Happy birthday!
Amazing.
Happy birthday, Sir Ian McKellen. One of the greats. You shall not pass. Oh no, that's the wrong show, isn't it?
A bit of a hero for many, it has to be said, but you've got a particular hero in mind for this week, haven't you, Simon?
I've got a hero today. Today in 2013, Pamela Sterling died at the age of 93. Now, Pamela Sterling, she is my Who's Heroes for today, dear old Pamela, because she's the Louvre guide in the City of Death. And I just love it. She's only in 2 brief scenes, and I love that she the way she arrives is Monsieur, s'il vous plaît, Monsieur. And of course, she wasn't born in. She did a better French accent than me, and yet she's born in Wandsworth. She's not remotely French. Born in Wandsworth. So many. She's one of those people that was in so much television. Softly, Softly, along with Brian Blessed, Inspector Morse, Dr. Finley's Casebook. So many of those classic British shows that you wouldn't necessarily recognise her from, but she's in there as a small part. And one of my favourite scenes in City of Death. And let's be honest, there are so many great scenes in City of Death. But one of my favourites is when Tom Baker, the Doctor, comes back in episode 3 and taps her on the shoulder, and she turns around and she's a little because he says stuff about, can you remember I was in here before with a chap that punched people, and she goes another little jump. It's just brilliant. She does so much with a very, very small part. So she's my Who's Heroes for this week. Respect to Pamela Sterling, who died in 2013, aged 93. Also, this week, in 1986, we lost Robert Holmes. Gosh.
Yes.
Robert Holmes. I mean,
he was only 60 as well. I forget 60. That. Yeah. I mean, I know it's no spring chicken, but it's still young.
It's young today's standards, absolutely. Yeah. Bearing in mind, we were still in the sort of 90s.
I mean, I can still remember the news breaking that
80s.
That Robert Holmes had died, because at the time, I don't know whether us oldies out there can remember this. I certainly can, but at the time, Robert Holmes was possibly pitched to take over as producer from JNT. There were rumours anyway that he might have taken over as producer from JNT, and of course, So poor Robert Holmes, and in 1994, we also lost the great Peter Cushing this week in 1994, aged 81. God, what a hero. He's a hero of mine. I love Peter Cushing.
You don't get talents like that anymore.
God, Peter, I grew up with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in those old Hammer films, the horror double bills on a Friday night. They were... Yeah, and in 2019, only a couple of years ago, we lost Stephen Thorne, aged 84. Azal from the Demons, Omega from the Three Doctors, Eldrad from the Hand of Fear. Never knowingly undersells a performance, doesn't Stephen Thorne? Some of my favourite lines of Stephen Thorne: "What is this? I should have been a god."
And that was him just going down for breakfast.
It was. You can't even change it. Can't you imagine him coming in from work? "Hello, honey, I'm home. What's for tea?"
Because he was very, very tall. Very, 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 very tall.
It strikes me he was one of those thespians who probably done a lot on the stage and projecting to the back of the room. He's done so much of that.
Make the rear seat rattle.
Yeah.
Is that what they say?
That's just something
I say in the theatre. That's just what you say.
That's just what I say. Yeah. Bombastic and old theatre. Oh, I miss that. It's kind of gone out of fashion now, but I enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's why I love to.
Yeah, they get all these mod cons now, don't they, Barnaby? They get microphones built into the set and coming down from wigs and stuff like that. It's all crap. Shout and ruin those vocal cords. That's what I say.
Exactly.
Well, if I remember rightly, whenever Patrick Troughton was asked to go on the stage, he was approached through his agent a lot, wasn't he? He was approached through his agent a lot for various parts on the stage, but he would always prefer TV because of the working hours. They were closer to being communal to family life, and as he got older, he just didn't enjoy that sort of thing. And if anybody would ever say to him something along the lines of, I'm doing this on stage, doing that on stage, are you working on stage at the moment? And he would always reply, I don't do any of that shouting in the evenings. And I suppose that's what he meant by the
Pretty much, yeah. It can be rather damaging on the old vocal cords.
And our final sad departure was in 2014. Linda Bellingham, age 66.
Oh, gosh,
Linda Bellingham.
Gosh, it's that long ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 7 years ago. 7 years since we lost Linda Bellingham.
Who's
And
that
that-
Bellingham again?
British
In the
character.
Oxo, that's right.
Oxo, is that her?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And,
she was
and the Inquisitor in the Trial of a Time Lord.
Yeah,
Sagacity,
she was a very established actress, though, because, of course, she also did All Creatures Great and Small. She did a hell of a lot of theatre stuff as well, and a lovely lady to boot.
Absolutely loved Linda Bellingham. Loved Peter Cushing too, as lots of people did in the chat. The third Doctor here watching on YouTube says that Peter Cushing's cousin was my school headmaster.
That's a terrifying headmaster.
I know, was it a werewolf or was it Dracula? Or... Which one was it? Igor?
Yeah, if he shares those
That's
Cushing
what
genes. Yeah.
inspired the demon headmaster.
Yeah.
We've got another one here. We've got Crimpling Doubloon in the chat. Says I visited the Louvre in 1979, 3 weeks after the Paris filming for City of Death would have taken place. So near and yet so far. Crimpling Doubloon.
Was it actually shot? Were the scenes inside the Louvre actually shot in the Louvre?
No. And do you know what? I remember being quite upset when I went to the Louvre to find it wasn't actually like that at all. They haven't even bothered to recreate it. It was just BBC flats. That's it. You know, and I was just like, well, this is much grander than it was in City of Death.
And I don't think they even used the exterior of the Louvre for them for Ramon and the Doctor to approach. It's a completely different building, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. I think it is because it was closed, wasn't it? When they went to, they actually everything was closed because I think they were filming on a Monday, and in those days Paris shut on a Monday. So that's the story that was going around. So they had to add, just had to make it up. But that's good old fashion television.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the lady's name, Simon, I've got to be honest, I'd never heard of her, but she's one of those performances, one of those little characters that you remember. And Ian, I suppose this is the same when you're casting, because obviously with the things that you've put together, you've written and produced, and you're casting characters, some of the smaller parts, it's just as important to get the right person for those too, isn't it? It doesn't necessarily, that phrase that there are no small parts, only small actors, is that something that you believe in?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to pass a small part, you might as well write something that's worthy of the person that's coming on board. You know, if he just comes and says one line, then it's pointless, really, isn't it? So, yeah, I do believe in that.
But what I think is interesting, and this is why I sort of picked out Pamela Sterling, because, as I say, she's literally only got about 3 lines in the whole thing, and yet she really makes that part her own. And just brings a joy to that scene. And again, I think it's one of those scenes that you would only ever get in Doctor Who. Where else would you get this scene, a scene like that, in other than in Doctor Who? It just doesn't work. You wouldn't have it in other dramas, and that's one of the reasons I think why we love Doctor Who, because it gives you the room to have that kind of slightly quirky, off-kilter stuff.
Was John Cleese did John Cleese have a small part in Doctor Who?
That's right, he did. John Cleese and the lovely, much missed Eleanor Bron.
I remember that. He had 3 lines as well.
Exquisite.
Yeah, and that scene is just an absolute classic in City of Death, where there's so many great scenes in City of Death. Really, did
Eleanor Bron? Is Eleanor Bron died as well then, JT?
No, not that I'm aware of. Has she?
Oh, so when you said the much missed Eleanor Bron, I thought she was still with us.
Oh no, just because we don't get to see her much these days. And if she has passed on, it's news to me. I've missed that one, but it's because you just don't get to see her around anymore, really.
What is it that line she does in City of Death? Exquisite.
It's brilliant.
Brilliant. Cracking story.
Yes, thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, Doctor Who, the entire history of Doctor Who, it's those kind of characters. Okay, it's maybe not completely unique to Doctor Who, but that kind of balance of sort of playing it for laughs and with a bit of a wink and a nudge and still being just the right side of believable. It's a difficult balance to strike. You got it in the classic show. You get it in the show as it is in the 21st century. I was going to say now, but we don't now. We get it in the 21st century, and we got it in 1996. I think there are characters as small as the cast is for the TV movie, you've got characters like William Sasso playing the mortuary attendant, who absolutely is in the same kind of ballpark as this, isn't he, Sarah?
Mm-hmm. It's been, I rewatched it today, and it's just that how he plays it with the the Frankenstein watching it, and then
that was a bit corny though. That bit, wasn't it? Let's face it. I mean, watching Frankenstein.
I loved that.
Maybe he wouldn't have picked this hospital.
I love the film. I think the film.
Party on.
It's such a shame that they didn't really make a movie. It was a TV movie. Do you know what I mean? It was 25% there, wasn't it? As something that could have been great. But it was really enjoyable as far as I was concerned. So.
I could get it anywhere, to be fair to the movie or TV. It was never going to be a theatrical movie, this particular project.
Yeah.
So it is a miracle that a single minute of it got filmed in the end and shown anywhere. And to be 25 years on talking about it. So let's get we've got a few more comments. Thank you everybody for your comments. Please keep them coming, and keep your memories of 1996 coming too, because but let's get into it with the TV movie, because as you rightly say, this was 1996. This was an event, whether it was the big screen or the small screen. And if you haven't seen it in a while, here's a quick synopsis here from us, Type 40 style. It's December 1999. God, that seemed so futuristic in itself at one point. That seemed so romantic, so exciting. The eve of the millennium, and strange things are happening. A British police box appears from nowhere in San Francisco's Chinatown, and the mysterious man inside it is shot down in the street. It's a great part to get, that is. Despite the best efforts of Dr. Grace Holloway, the man dies, and another stranger appears, claiming to be the same person in a different body. A wanderer in time and space known only as the Doctor. But the Doctor is not the only alien in San Francisco. His deadly adversary, the Master, is murdering his way through the city, desperate to take the Doctor's newly regenerated body for himself. If the Doctor does not capitulate, it will literally cost the Earth and every last life on it. Dun dun dun. That's the lay of the land. The stakes, by Doctor Who standards at the time, that's pretty high. Very, very fast. It's the kind of plot that people do knock this plot, and it's probably fair to say you could write it on the back of a fag packet. But that wasn't the job at hand this time, was it? It was the whole sort of tentpole of it, of being a showcase for this format, for this central character, and to have 1 foot on each side of the Atlantic too. My God, this was a balancing act. It was incredible and ambitious, even as a TV movie, wasn't it? I mean, JT, you've been a fan for decades at this point. It did hurt when the show went away. It did hurt when the show went away, and the time in between was long and arduous. But how did you feel when this premiered on BBC One? I mean, lots of us, we had sort of seen it before, but it was intoxicating. It was an event, wasn't it?
It was an event because it was shown on May the 27th. It was a bank holiday Monday in the United Kingdom. On the night itself, I wasn't feeling much about it because, of course, the video had been released beforehand. So I had watched it. This little fella here had been released, I think, the week or 2 weeks before. So I had already seen it, and that had been an event because the video, everybody came around to my house and we put it on and we watched it, and and that was the event for us. But then I rewatched it on the bank holiday Monday. But the vibe around it at the time in '96 was one of great excitement, although we were all very, as a fandom, and we were a united fandom, in much more so in those days, we were all very worried about it because there was an American influence into this. There was foreign money into this. The BBC, in some of our eyes, had sold out to a certain extent in order to get it on air. We had heard rumours about this. I mean, Ian's talking about the script of this show. This was probably the better script to go with out of the nightmares that you can now read about through the Nth Doctor book or online. So there was all this sort of stuff. So we were all very apprehensive, but still excited. And it was event television, and it did brilliantly well over here. It did fantastically well. It was a bank holiday Monday. People came and tuned into the show. And it showed that Doctor Who was a hit. It had a massive influence on the fact that Doctor Who was then, later on in the year, voted at the 60th anniversary awards of the BBC as the best drama ever for the BBC had produced. So it really hit home with a lot of people. And as we know, it did its job in a sense as a one-off. It did introduce an element of a new audience.
It did.
When you talk about the fandom, and I don't know if you felt the same, Simon, because obviously as somebody who'd been deeply involved in fandom, but this is still prior to, I think Gallifrey 1 was happening, but organised fandom, the Outpost Gallifrey forum, I don't think that was up yet, and social media was a world away. But JT's right, isn't he? I think we all had reservations based on innumerable things, but there was a unity from Doctor Who fans too, wasn't there? As if that 7 years had seemed so long. Let's get behind this.
Absolutely, and the truth of the matter is, and this is difficult to sort of get your head around today, that we genuinely thought the show was never ever coming back. As I think we talked about last week, we'd had all the things like the Green Light film, the Coast to Coast film with Peter, what was his name? Can't remember now. That had come and gone, and we'd had so many promises and nothing had happened, and so we were resigned to the fact that it was never coming back at all. And so suddenly it really was definitely happening. We definitely all wanted to be excited by it. We wanted to like it, and we were. It was big news. I still remember in the run up to it. I remember possibly the first time I saw it actually was in W.H. Smith's with the advertising boards for the VHS that JT's just talked about. And I remember the strap line being, he's back and it's about time. And blimey, it's about time, because that's what we were all thinking. And that was the best strap line in history for Doctor Who. And that really got you, just literally the strap line alone got you excited, because you thought, yeah, it is about time. And so there was an enormous feeling of anticipation and wanting to like it. And it's interesting what you say, Dan, about the script that could be written on the back of a postage stamp, and it's true. But then the same could be said of Rose, for example. Rose is just purely a setup episode.
Task at hand.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So that's all they were doing. They were trying to re-establish a brand in the UK, and they were trying to establish a brand in the US. And to be fair to them, it was probably a difficult task to do, and they were probably only at most partially successful with that. But to an extent, God, that is a really tough, it was always a tough call to introduce America to Doctor Who with that movie. That's a really tough call.
Reintroduce.
Yeah, and for me personally, much as I love the first 10 minutes with Sylvester McCoy, they are great. And as a Doctor Who fan at that time, it was brilliant that they acknowledged the Seventh Doctor and they did the proper handover as they should have done. But in hindsight, it was a catastrophic mistake.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And they absolutely shouldn't have done it. And they should have just hit the ground running with Paul McGann, and they should have told one belter of a story instead of telling a regeneration tale. And that's why it was only partially successful. And that will be one of the reasons why it didn't work in America, because the Americans were like, okay, I've just got to know this character called the Doctor, and now he's died, and I've got a different character called the Doctor. You can understand how America struggled to respond to that. So
the benefit of that, though, is that Russell learned from that, didn't he? And then when the show came back in 2004 for 2005, bang, there he is, up and running, no introduction necessary.
And to be fair, at that moment in time, it was probably inconceivable of doing Doctor Who and not having the handover, not having the regeneration. Nobody ever thought hit the ground.
It was a long way. It was a long way around that Phil Segal got to that place. I think it's because the project had been through so many different versions. By the time it landed with Fox as this TV movie with a sort of a more modest and more immediate task at hand, I think the shape of the project changed, and Segal's aspirations for it, ambitions for it, he'd kind of tempered and measured his expectations accordingly. And I think the BBC had too. It was Joe Wright was in charge of the sort of day-to-day negotiations of it. And I think she was, whilst not a supporter of McCoy, I think that between Seagull and Joe Wright, they kind of pared it down to something that would be manageable, that wouldn't frighten the horses, and they could build on from. I wanted to ask you about this though, Ian, because as a director, you've worked in Vancouver, haven't you? And what strikes me about this, because I was reading a little bit about this a couple of days ago, and it's so involved, and the process to get there was so long. But I think Paul McGann was announced as the Doctor in late January, early February. I think by early April, maybe April, second week of April, they were filming the thing. It had wrapped 3 weeks later, and then boom, by the end of May, it's on screen. It's compared to the BBC, where they would bugger about for months, if not years. This lands at Fox as a movie of the week, and within 3 months, there's a movie there delivered. Vancouver is supposed to be like a TV factory. A TV movie factory. What's it like working over there? What's that system like?
Well, it's basically the same system as England, right? So basically, England doesn't really have a film industry at all. If people tell you that England has a film industry, they're lying, basically, or they're just up their own arse. It's one of the two. So basically, it kind of reflects England. So basically, Vancouver is kind of like a huge facilities house for America, just like we are a big facilities house for America. They come over here because of the tax breaks. They shoot their stuff in our studios, and they use our crew and they use our cast, and then they bugger off. And then when they make money, all the money goes back to America, and we don't get nothing. So same thing with Vancouver. It's the same thing because it's only 1 hour difference between LA and Vancouver. So they can talk freely on the phone, talk to people. Plus the weather is slightly different, and it's close to LA. So that's the reason why. And it's the same thing, tax breaks. And you get cheap labor when you go to Vancouver as well. Plus you don't have to get English people trying to put American accents on, because Canadian accent sounds close to the American accent, blah, 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 blah. So that's why they shot it in Vancouver, because it was cheaper at the end of the day. So there you go.
We've got this is, I mean, because obviously we've got multiple DC shows get filmed there on seemingly every street corner now, and apparently if you're with a keen eye, Barnaby, you can spot the same building shot from different angles all the time. But I wanted to, there's a great question here in the chat from Graham Robertson, and he asks, I wonder what the reaction to the TV movie would have been if we did have social media in 1996. What do you think?
We can answer that with two words: half human.
The internet,
I bet you social media would have exploded, and it would have been a huge.
Well, to be honest, it did. The fandom did with the term half human and the kiss. I mean, it didn't matter that we didn't have it. I mean, somehow, and I can't remember. Mega Geeky and Simon may be able to remind me. But how did we do that? How did we all know that we weren't happy with those two elements?
Well, they were the pubs. Right,
It was definitely interesting. That whole half human thing was very interesting, because I remember when we didn't know, obviously, before we saw the film that was going to be mentioned, and I remember it just it gets sort of just dropped into conversation. I think it's the Master that first mentioned it, isn't it? Dropped into conversation, and it was one of those moments where for a minute I sort of did a double take, and I thought, did he just say what I think he said? And I was all right, thinking, hold on, is the Doctor half human? Did we find out in some story that he's half? And I missed about 10 minutes of the film because I was trying to work out in my head what the hell they were talking about.
I equate this to I don't know if you know the story of Star Wars when George Lucas had a rough cut and he showed it to Spielberg and
the original film,
Scorsese and all that, and they went in the theater and they went in there and Scorsese and I can't remember the other director took the mickey out of George after seeing it because they didn't think it was very good.
Coppola,
that was it. And Spielberg was the only one that said to him, this is going to make a crap load of it. I want to share in it, and Spielberg got a share in it, right? I equate that to me and my friends. I remember when we saw this film, I said to them that most of my friends didn't like it at all because of the half human and this and that, the other, and the eye of harmony, and they didn't think it was Doctor Who, blah, blah, blah. But I was the only one out of all my friends that liked this film. And I said, do you know what? This is the future of Doctor Who. If they went this way, then Doctor Who would probably get better and get stronger because it's plush and they put money into it and they treated it seriously. And everybody's like, shut up, Ian, what do you know? Next thing you know, we've got David Tennant kissing what's her name? And you know what I mean?
Everyone.
It just went on from there. It's like, that's what I'm saying. So I knew that this was the right way to go. And I remember somebody was saying to me, oh yeah, the costume's a bit rubbish. I was like, no, the costume's fantastic. And I like the way he's got the long hair. I love his costume. And then Paul McGann throws his thing in the ring going, oh, I want short hair. Oh, when he came back to do the Night of the Doctor, he was dressed, Lord knows what he was dressed in, for God's sakes. What the hell was that? Anyway, I digress.
I really liked the costume, and also in terms of like putting money into it, it is the most beautiful TARDIS interior I think ever. And it just the lighting and the atmosphere, even like the weird CGI bats. For the 90s of CGI bats. But it is a beautiful interior of the TARDIS.
As fans, though, we could be so closed off with new stuff. As fans, like, for instance, this is Doctor Who, we'd be like that. Leave my Doctor Who alone, go away, and stuff like that. But as a real fan, you should really just kind of put it down and let it grow.
And I totally
at the time.
We've talked in the past about roundels. You know, we love roundels. We want to get back to the old white console room, and we do. I agree, but Barnaby is right. There are no roundels to speak of in that console room, and yet it is the most beautiful TARDIS interior. It's magnificent, and to this day, I don't know why Russell T Davies or any of the other showrunners haven't kind of gone with that Gothic. That Gothic style and the library on the side.
They didn't think it was part of
beautiful. It's beautiful.
I would say Richard would say that there is a homage to the roundels in the McGann TARDIS, and they are around on the girths around the and he's and that's that nod. And if you look at the door, the exterior door does have the roundels on it as well. So Richard was aware of what he was doing. But, you know, again, if you look at it, though, I mean, that was the start. The 96 console room was the start of this whole thing of having the time rotor connected to the blooming ceiling. That stayed up until the end of the series in 2017, you know, with that going on. So, you know, that's always irked me to a slight bit as well. I like the thing where the Doctor can put his hat on it. But, you know, it would have made a great toy, which I know they would always love to have done. They would, you know, they would have always said love to that. But if there was anything aligned, that it was just stunning. The attention to detail and the amount of money they spent on it and the space on it, it really did show that the Doctor's adventures were encapsulated in this box.
It had so much texture. I think what the rabbi says here, the roundels are represented in the circles.
That's it, yeah.
Richard, they're behind me now as I'm in the console room, as you can see.
There you go.
And Richard Houdelin was the production designer. He called them kisses to the past.
Yes.
I remember that at the time. They were all termed as kisses to the past. And as if this was a lived-in space. This was the Doctor's domain. This was his home. This was, I mean, as fond as I am of the sort of sparse, the kind of the humming white of the classic show, now I really responded to the inside of the TARDIS. And I love the outside of the TARDIS as well. It just felt so rich. The production all felt rich. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm aware that there was... It's very, very enjoyable. And I felt, Ian, that it's like any pilot movie. This wasn't a final word.
It wasn't a pilot.
no, but you know, for all intents and purposes, I mean, you know, obviously the intentions that's beside the point. You know, the whole that's what they had to say to get the damn thing on. But this was intended as an opening shot by Philip Siegel to go somewhere, so it would have all evolved. Too, the look of it would have evolved, the stories would have evolved, and I think that's very evident in every aspect of the production too, even in the look of the Doctor, because it is this. We talked about his costume; it is very stylized. Again, what Paul McGann's Doctor is wearing, because he literally finds it is literally a costume which he steals out of a locker. Somebody who's going to a fancy dress, and I feel that over time his look would have evolved.
And who did that?
Would have looked less off the peg.
And who did that?
Who did what? Sorry.
Who stole clothes out of a locker? It was Matt Smith.
Pertwee, the
Pertwee.
Doctor.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Kisses to the past. I mean,
Exactly.
it runs through the whole film. You know, that they are.
Just
If you look at it was there.
It's a great. Look. I would go as far as to say it's one of the most enjoyable Doctor Who's I've ever seen. Right, when I first saw it on the screen, I loved every moment of it. Of course, it's not perfect, right? A lot of my friends were going, "It's not Doctor Who." I had to tell them to shut up because this should be Doctor Who, right? And as I said, look at it; it was way ahead of its time. The things that happened in that film happened with New Who and stuff like that. 'Cause they knew they had to go that way. They knew.
Really believe if you watch Rose straight after that, it does fit. It's got the same tone.
I'd say, Sarah, if you watch Rose immediately after Survival, it also fits.
It does.
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, for me, it's completely all the things that they did alter, that they did reposition. They were all in service of real character and chiming something of bringing out from the Doctor himself, so that they thought was its best chance of making a better connection in the there and then, and seeding for as things would go along. I mean, one of my very favourite scenes, I'm going to put it up again, one of my very favourite scenes is this scene, this joyous first kiss with Grace. But that whole sequence whereby he is gradually realising who he is again. And I absolutely do think this is a romantic kiss completely. I think he is attracted to her and she's certainly attracted to him. But the moment that entire scene, the way it all plays out, it's just one of my favourite Doctor Who sequences. And the Doctor as a romantic lead, it always worked for me because he is. I believe the character. He is a romantic character. That doesn't mean that he has to be seen to be chasing the opposite sex, or even in a relationship. But
well, before this, he was a
romantic
granddad character, wasn't he? He was a father character before this, right? I don't know about Sylvester McCoy. He turned into something else. I don't know what he was because I didn't really like Sylvester McCoy. But this was the right way to go.
Yeah, it was. It was the
for
right
a good-looking
evolution
Doctor for the generation that was coming after.
It was the right evolution for the character. And just to chime back with what Graham said there about social media, and I think that reactions would still have been pretty damn positive, to be truthful, because they were a few years later when in the wake of it, people look. I yearn for the day when the biggest thing we had to argue about between us was whether the Doctor was half human or not. That seems so inconsequential, but it's also quite potent as well. And it doesn't close. It doesn't shut anything down. It doesn't exclude anybody. More to the point, and it does make a sort of sense. And so I think that and what grinds my gears a little bit. I do want to keep this a mostly positive stream and something that I don't want to talk about now, present Doctor Who. But what does perplex me and slightly irritate me is that a lot of the people that I see, not just on social media, on Twitter and the like, but I'm aware of in the Doctor Who world, and this is I say this with my tongue in my cheek. A lot of the people that I see now who say that everything that's gone on with the Timeless Children and the gender swap gimmick, that's absolutely fine. They were the same people that said that the half-human stuff was blasphemy and terrible and shouldn't be in Doctor Who. And I just wonder, to me, there is nothing the Brits like less than a hypocrite, and I suspect that. And that's something that sorry, JT.
No, I was just going to say to you that there was a bit of a fuss. It's very hard for people to understand now, but there was a little fuss about the half-human thing, only from fandom. The public don't give a toss, But from most people, we were all like, I mean, Simon was going around going, "Oh, hang on a minute," and then lost 10 minutes of the show. And I was a bit sort of like, hang on a minute. But when you open it up creatively, had they gone to a series, that would have actually explained an awful lot of why the Time Lords were always looked down at the Doctor, why he always had problems regenerating, because it could have opened up a little bit more of that sort of storyline where. And we never got to see that because, of course, when it came back, that was jettisoned. We don't talk about that now, but it was an interesting thing for them and it was adding to this sort of had they got the series. And I do stick with we have to go with the fact that they always thought this was just going to be a one-off film, but we all know behind the scenes, like with everything, they were always hoping we'll get a commission for a series, but they will never admit it. But had they had that element in, it could have taken the show in a very 90s direction. And who knows where we would be I don't think it would have run more than 7 years. I think McGann was talking about 7 years away, wasn't he? But you know, it would have been interesting.
Well, I
absolutely would have watched this if it had turned into a series. I remember really enjoying it, and I was a complete novice. So I was 11 years old. I absolutely loved like this heroic figure.
Look, that's exactly what I meant. Yeah, because it reflects Spock, because Spock was half human. And so I guess they were trying to go down that route with the Doctor.
It's part of the American element, isn't it, to try and make the audience more... Sorry, Sarah.
No, you're okay.
Sorry, Sarah.
But yeah, all the, this mystery about him, he's got this beautiful shape. I mean, I loved it when you could see the stars above and, in the roof of the TARDIS and jumping on motorbikes and getting dragged. And then getting pissed. I'm like, ooh, this is...
Do you get the impression, Sarah? Do you get the impression that Sarah, that when they were thinking along those terms, be it the director who decides like how should this kiss be, how passionate should it be, or how chaste it should be, or how far should the roof of the TARDIS open up? That all the way along, I always got the impression that between them they were thinking, why not just go for it? Why not? What's the worst thing that can happen? This is a pilot. This is a place where we get a license to not necessarily throw things at the wall and see what sticks, but to see which connects, to see which elements people latch onto. I think as Ian's definitely latched on to some elements there that you just know that they seeded it in, and they use language. For example, they use language like a cloaking device instead of chameleon circuit, which I know makes some of us, and even now I think, oh come on. Because I know that Phil Segal would have known what a chameleon circuit was.
Absolutely.
Does it matter, though?
It doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter at all. Not really. Because the Doctor was relaying the information to somebody else too. He's
relaying it to a new audience in America. The whole thing was geared towards the American audience rather than the British. You could guarantee the Brits were going to watch this thing back in '96. It was only a few years off the air. It was only 7 years off. Everybody knew what it was. You could guarantee we were coming back, and they did. They wanted it in America. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. That was the most important thing.
England didn't want it. So
we did. The ratings, the British people watched it in their droves. The viewing figures.
No, what I'm saying is BBC didn't want to make any more. So do you know what I mean?
They were reluctant. They didn't believe in the brand. There were very few friends. There were very few friends of it in the BBC itself, but Enterprises worldwide, I can never remember where the changeover happened, but they were always, because they were the commercial arm, and Doctor Who was making all that money through those VHS sales, and my God, they'd have had to have been mad. Let's focus a little bit on the Doctor himself for a while, because obviously he was back. This is our hero. Paul McGann was a 36-year-old actor at the time, famously Liverpudlian, and already a veteran of several high-profile dramas and comedy dramas, but he had that big screen success too, the cult movie With Nail and I, which I've never been particularly fond of myself. I know everybody loves that, but there was a quote from him at the time, and it was on the front cover of SFX magazine, because he told them in an interview that he was worried he would look like a tosser. but in reality, Barnaby, I feel that this is a really confident debut in the role, and he looks like he was born to it.
I think he nailed it. I really think there's a reason why. I mean, I've got this character options figure of it's one of the few of like the Doctor ones I still have, because he is still one of my favorite Doctors, literally just from him being in this movie and in The Night of the Doctor, and of course his fantastic and Big Finish audio range, the early ones anyway. And he was brilliant to that kind of like Byron-esque and sort of romantic kind of thing. And he's just the plot of this movie is very, very thin, but I don't mind any of that, because I'm just so happy seeing Paul just do his stuff and just be the Doctor, and I'll still put on the movie just every so often just to see him do that and just think what could have been if there was a series with him. And I just
it's the first time we saw Doctor in a chase as well, wasn't it? The first time we ever saw a real sort of chase in Doctor. I mean, I remember Tom Baker being on a horse at one point. But this was like on a bike, and police was chasing him, and the master wasn't. You know what I mean?
He makes it all look so easy. I think Ian, and he works as an action as a romantic hero, as a quasi-romantic lead and a romantic figure and a mysterious figure, he works. I think as a potential action hero, he also works. I think as a comedic lead, he works too. I just think Barnaby, he does it all, and he makes it all look natural and easy. And he was a born star. You can see why Joe Wright in particular was sort of pushing for him at the BBC. I mean, look how at home he looks here, and still, and yet it's such an energetic performance, isn't it?
It's perfect. Well, it's got one of my favorite lines when he's out and he's just put on the shoes and he goes, the sky was dancing with the lights, purple and green and brilliant yellow. And you can just see him just visualizing it right there. And then just at the end, these shoes, they fit perfectly.
I think he was trying
it's a
to be
wonderful
quirky there. There was a couple of things that I didn't like. As I said, the film's not perfect, but he was. I think maybe he was getting direction from the director, going, "No, can we do this?" Because Tom used to do that, and the Jelly Babies thing I thought was out of place as well when he offered the policeman some Jelly Babies. But apart from that, Paul was just getting into the role, as you can see halfway through the movie. He was just becoming his own Doctor. And that was the last time we saw him on screen.
That's why I really like that. I really like that Jelly Baby bit because it does a very Doctor-y thing afterwards. He gets out the gun. So now we give us the bite before I shoot myself. I mean, that got a chuckle out of me. So I think that. I mean, again, that is something that Tom would do. And Jelly Babies was very much sort of Tom's thing.
Yeah, it was.
God, I always forget that.
Kisses of the past. Kisses to the past.
Yeah,
that scene with the motorbike you're talking about there, Barnaby. I've always loved that scene too.
Same here.
And it's those little moments that are uniquely Doctor Who. I don't think any other hero on TV would have played the moment like that. And for everything that we've said about the plot being thin, I would rather have a thin, serviceable plot and then get the moments like that right, get the character beats right, than the other way around, Simon. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yes, totally. I think the thing is, as we've said, it is a thin plot. It doesn't go desperately far. Although actually,
character.
Yeah, but actually, I think for all of its faults, I actually think it's quite a cracking plot. It's great that it's set on New Year's Eve. The fate of the universe is at stake. All this kind of stuff. I love all the stuff at the end when New Year comes and they've got all the shots of the various countries and it all sort of folds down in on itself and time stops. I love all that. So actually, I think the thing with the movie where it does excel is in these set pieces. It's got a few absolutely cracking set pieces, and that's not to say it hasn't got the filler stuff in between that joins the gaps, because it has. It's got that as well. But some of those set pieces, the bike chase being a standout, I love the way it really. Although the plot is not the most exciting and far-reaching plot, the film is done with panache. It's done with a real sense of style and confidence. That's the thing. It's a really confident film. And I would like to sort of recognise Jeffrey Sachs as the director, because I really think he did a very, very good job with difficult material and with a really difficult backstage story of wrestling this thing to the screen. And
did it help that he was British, Simon?
I don't honestly know whether it made a scrap of difference whether he was British. I just think he brings a heck of a lot of style.
Most Doctor Who fans hated it, though. Most Doctor Who fans hated it.
No, I
remember.
No, I don't.
But
they just hated it. My brother hated it. He's a Doctor Who fan.
For me, having come off Survival, which by that point in Doctor Who's history, I am really barely holding on by the end of the McCoy era, to come off that and go into the McGann movie, and the first thing that opens the show is what I think is a brilliant 5 minutes. Okay, the Daleks don't work. We forget that.
No.
Doesn't matter. The Daleks, that's ridiculous. But visually, those opening 5 minutes that start with a spinning Skaro in exactly the same way that Russell T Davies started with a spinning Earth at the beginning of Rose. So again, you can see the links where Russell T Davies picked up on it. But I love that opening sequence with the shot of Skaro, and it all melds beautifully into the overhead shot of the Master, and we come down, and it ends. This fantastic bravura opening sequence ends spinning out of a fish's eye And I still have a problem with that
Nice
shot
touch,
because, as a vegetarian, when the fish gets its head cut off, I still have a problem with that scene. But
maybe the master's eyes, isn't it?
But that aside, that whole opening sequence, the way it all spins out, it's phenomenal. Visually, Jeffrey Sachs has a real flair. He brings flair and panache to the production.
Have you seen the one on YouTube when they actually put the master in there?
Yeah.
That's quite good.
Can I just add that I think it actually helped that Jeffrey Sachs, who's still working today, people, you'll see him on a lot of credits today with lots of various different shows. So hello, Jeffrey, if you're watching. I think it actually did help that we had a British director. For the simple reason, as an American director would have gone completely down a different route because they didn't understand the essence of what Doctor Who is. Now, Jeffrey did. He often says when he's around when he was on the gig circuits, he would often say he had watched Doctor Who. He had known Hartnell. He had known Troughton. He had known Pertwee. He had known Tom Baker. He knew the essence of this. And I think if you're going to try and do something like that, it's like Matthew Wright was British, the writer. You know, you have to try and bring that element in so that you can at least retain something familiar. And that worked for Jeffrey. It really did. It was
both Jeffrey and Matthew Jacobs, they were expats who'd done work for the BBC and were now working within that sort of studio system. So Jeffrey Sachs had been on things like Bergerac and Lovejoy, but he'd done comedy too. He'd done the New Statesman, the Rick Mayall show. He'd been on that.
Right.
He'd been on. I think he'd been on Spitting Image
really
too.
Brilliant job though, because they balanced it. Because obviously you have to look at it in their shoes, right? They're making something that they love, right? Doctor Who, right? They know Doctor Who like a hand. Then they have to please the Americans as well. So they had to find the balance between
Americans watching on YouTube. Are you really that difficult to please, Americans? Let us know.
But this is where I would argue that actually
a really good job, in my opinion, right? There's no way you could have done it any better. They found the balance. They did it the best they can. And as I said, most Doctor Who fans I knew at that time hated it because it wasn't like Doctor Who. But I kept saying to them, this is the future of Doctor Who. This is where Doctor Who should go. And you know what? I was right. So there you go.
There's two beautiful shots that I love, and it does link to Rose. I mean, the scene with Lee when he goes in the TARDIS for the first time.
Yes.
Obviously, Russell took that. I love that. And the motorbike going into the TARDIS and then coming back out. And again, like you were saying with the style, it was just little visual quirks like that. It still feels really modern. You know, I know it is dated because you can tell it's 90s, but that style, it does feel really modern.
Yeah.
Moments and a brand of comedy. That's the scene you're talking about, isn't it, Sarah? Where they're being pursued by the motorcycle policeman, and they open the TARDIS, the bike goes in, and we get the comedy double take in a sense. It's pure Looney Tunes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Totally, and it makes no sense at all because when you enter into the TARDIS 2 seconds later, none of the rugs have been moved, nothing's smashed down on the floor, the books are still.
JT went round and came out.
Yeah, but the rugs, he would have moved the rugs, he would have knocked into the chair. That's been the real thing that spoiled the whole film.
It was very much, look at the effect we can do, What did he say? Like, it was something like dubbed in, saying like, oh, the brakes are broken or something like that when he was going in, like with the guy on the motorcycle was saying the brakes have gone or something, then he just goes in. I think that was a bit out of left field, but it looked good. It looked cool.
Didn't they use one of the cheapest and oldest tricks in the book to complete the scene? Didn't I see somewhere? It was plate glass, wasn't it? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was plate glass.
It was done in camera.
Oh, done in camera.
I do like the key that they had for the TARDIS. The key was.
But that was an old one, love. That was an old one.
I like that. I mean, in the Matt Smith one, he's got literally a key. I'm like,
well, there was a reason for that, wasn't it? So
And he says, doesn't he? That's another little moment of dialogue. All this comes from Matthew Jacobs too, who I think. Have you ever heard Matthew Jacobs speak as well? The writer, very eccentric man. It's as if he'd been writing for the Beano or something as well as this.
Well, he was writing for the American networks for 20 years. They drove him insane.
Apparently so. But that line, he says, when they go looking for the key, doesn't Grace give him a lift up the door? And he says, no, it's vice versa. Yeah. He says to her, it's in a cubby hole above the P.
Cubby hole above the P.
Wonderful. I just love it.
I wonder if it's still there, that cubby hole.
That's what
the Americans going, what the hell is a cubby hole? What the hell are you talking about?
Whilst I remember, I want to mention this. Ian, you mentioned this a little while ago. The link to this is in the description of the video. It'll be in the show notes of the podcast too. This recent film that's been put together, it's up on YouTube, as you've rightly said. Somebody, I can't remember the name of the channel, but somebody on YouTube has put together footage of Anthony Ainley from Destiny of the Doctors, that PC game from around 97, 98. Put that in, footage of that, in with the opening that Simon so beautifully recounted earlier on, to create this kind of more seamless junction, really, between the classic series and the TV movie. So it's sort of this alternative beginning to the TV movie. And you can find the link in the description to that. Let us know what you think. I can't play it because I think we'd probably get a copyright strike, but
possibly.
Just wanted to remind you while we mentioned it.
Well done.
It is very, very well done. And I still that footage of Ainley playing the Master in Destiny. It is called Destiny of the Doctors, isn't it?
Something like that.
Game. Yeah. Yep. And Ainley as the Master, it is the best Ainley ever was as the Master. He plays it beautifully, and exactly how Ainley should have played the Master through the 80s, and had he played it like that, I think he'd be far better remembered, because he literally acts himself off the screen of his TV appearances. If you, I think the Destiny of the Doctor's footage, I think it might be on the Keeper of Traken DVD somewhere. I think it's on one of the DVDs.
Himself some money by dropping Roberts and getting him to do it in the movie.
He could have saved a few quid. I think he would have moved quite so quickly. But let's talk about the Master, the actual Master from the TV movie, because this was Eric Roberts, wasn't he? He was around 40 at the time. Was the draw for the American audience. He was and it's awful to speak about him like this, because I do really like Eric Roberts. I think he seems like a wonderful man, very, very funny. But he was sort of a concession, really, to the American network. They demanded that if they were going to have Paul McGann, who they weren't particularly against, but wasn't a name. He wasn't the man that they wanted. I think they wanted Sting or somebody like that. If they couldn't have who they wanted for the lead, they wanted the villain to be somebody who that the American audiences would recognize. And Eric Roberts was, by this point, he was a movie star. I think this maybe wasn't his first TV role, but it was one of very few that he'd taken. And he knew Doctor Who too. I don't know if he's exaggerated that over the years, but I understood as that he studied in Britain and had seen the show and liked it and sort of latched onto it and remembered it, crucially. So we got him, and they paired him with Yi So, who's a young Canadian actor. I think he could have only have been not long out of drama school even. And he's a singer, director now. He's very much still around. And they kind of paired them a little bit as a double act in places. But Eric was allowed to go pretty much anywhere, go big or go home with this character, wasn't he, Ian? I mean, it's a movie star performance in a TV movie, really, isn't it? He does it's channeling the Terminator, it's challenging Tim Curry, everything's in there.
I think he's cracking. I have to be honest.
On first watch, the fact that the eyes and that he could possess people and Grace when she's got the black eyes. That was actually quite terrifying as a child.
But the snake thing, Dad, where did that come from? Is that part of history of Doctor Who or something?
No,
why did the thing turn into the snake? I'm like, what?
No, it's all created for the show. But I love that whole transition of the snake and going into is it Bruce, the paramedic?
The whole thing with the whole thing with the snake, and I heard, was all to do with some kind of religious imagery they tried to put in. Like they had the snake. I think Grace calls the Master the devil at some point. There's the whole coming out of the tomb in a white shroud kind of thing. Him sort of like getting in that. Yeah. Why is there a ruined area of the hospital, by the way, which is leaking all the way down? And, anyway, when he's there, and does the whole like crucifix kind of thing. So I think they were trying to shoehorn in some Yeah, religious imagery,
I'm
like
not-
a snake in the garden or something. But yeah,
I'm not sure about that, Barnaby, because I heard those rumors only recently, about 10 years ago. But it's never cropped up in any of the interviews with Phil or Matthew or Jeffrey Sachs or anything like that. But the template was set with the Master, with the Keeper of Traken, and certainly in Gary Russell's novelization of the story. It was put out that the Master would do absolutely anything to make sure he did not die. So therefore, he would take any alien influence. He would do anything to ensure that his essence, his body, or what his self would be preserved. And it just happened that this sort of limbo variant of him looked like a snake because the CGI was very new at that point, and so that's all. So I wouldn't say there was anything to do with that. There, I think that's probably a little bit fancy.
I'm buying this because I'm sure I've definitely read or heard in discussion that Barnaby has mentioned about McGann in the white in the hospital being resurrected.
The thing looked like a crown of thorns.
I'm
he
sure
does look
I've
a bit
heard
Jesus-y.
that being discussed.
Just be aware though that prop Sarah that prop Sarah that they get at the end, the prop they get at the end with McGann has that crown of thorns you just mentioned there. That's actually from another movie. Yeah, so it wasn't. Yes, it's. I think it was in the Mighty Morphin Power movies or Teenage Mutant or one of those sort of things. Another Fox film. It's in one of those, and it just happened to be around. And they said, "Right, that'll save us some money. We'll have that."
It's
what
something
really
explained to
annoys
me
me
the
is
bit
that
where
when it comes
Grace,
off,
where
there's
the
no
doctor
marks
says
around
to
his
her,
eye.
"It was a childish dream that made you become a doctor." Oh, it's all right. Childish dream that made you become a doctor. Well, I never did understand that, even to today. How does the Doctor know that?
Because he's a time traveler.
Yeah. So what did he do then? What go forward?
Well, at some point, it's suggested that at some point in his future, he's gone back into her past and influenced himself. I mean, he's a time traveler. These sort of, I mean, Moffat was playing around with these elements his entire career in Doctor Who, wasn't he? And Christopher Eccleston's Doctor went back to deliver Rose a bike that she got when she was whatever age, 9 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It's one of several things that they begin to seed in the movie. I feel the name dropping is another sort of just little running gag. Name dropping, pickpocketing, the idea that he knows what Gareth's exam results are and where to study and all those kind of things, seeding things that may go somewhere, they may not. But it's a case at the time, why not? This could be fun. This will amuse people. This will interest people. This will make people go, did he just say this or that? What was that? Did I hear that properly? So, I think that all of that was there just to try things out.
Well, the film was about time. I mean, that's why the strapline Simon mentioned earlier in the show is so good, because it was about time the character was back, but it was also about time, the race, the race of the countdown of midnight. But also from the Doctor's point of view, it was about elements of time. This is a time traveler who, although he was set in 1996, had been around. So therefore, he would recognize Gareth if Gareth went on to cure cancer or whatever in his future. Maybe Grace did go on to do something else, and he sort of was aware of that. But it was all explained later on as well, wasn't it, with all the flux in the timelines and stuff like that,
And
fixed time.
The one part of the film that really annoys me, and I really, really would change, and I wish they hadn't done, is resurrecting Grace and
made no sense.
I'm just like, don't kill characters to just miraculously, with a bit of CGI, bring them back to life again. It's just, please don't insult my intelligence. And of course, that happens now in the modern series just about
all the time, apparently. Yeah.
Why do that? If you're going to kill characters, fine, kill them. If you're not going to kill them, if you're going to bring them back to life, don't kill them in the first place.
Well, it's traditional, isn't it?
Or something. It seems like a rewrite because it seems like it was a rewrite or something, because they never explain it, because somehow they go back in time, but then time changes inside the TARDIS, and it's got something to do with setting alarm clocks, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's temporal orbit, whatever that means. We're still not sure whatever that means.
But the
thing is,
they do concentrate. That's a panel that you're talking about there, isn't it, JT? On the console and on the scanner, that temporal orbit, and they do keep cutting back to that. And there was footage from this that didn't make it through to any version, either the UK or the US edition. So it could be, as you've said, part of the plot that we kind of lost along the way.
I think it's possibly one of those strains that had they gone forward, we would have seen an element again. But it's traditional, isn't it? I totally agree with what the guys are saying. If you're going to kill anyone, you kill your baddie and then you bring them back later on and you never explain it. A la Moriarty, a la the Master on several different occasions, a la everybody else. But don't knock off your companions and then bring them back under some good thing.
Well, literally 2 minutes later, I mean, this is what, as I was watching the film, I just remember thinking, it's obvious that those two characters are not dead. It's obvious that they are now going to be resurrected with some timey-wimey magic. So just don't do it. People don't get it. People don't buy it anymore. We know you're going to bring them back.
No, I mean, you could have had that element at the end there where you could have had a really gung-ho thing where with Grace really getting into it, really, battling, having shed off the Master's influence, she could have really have gone, whoa, I'm back now and I'm going to help him. Instead, they just go bang, slam on the floor for 10 minutes.
Didn't mind it. It was all right,
Yeah,
it was visually memorable, I suppose, wasn't it? Looking at people in the chat, we've got lots and lots of comments. Blue Bonnet Hoovians visited us. She says, I have a love-hate relationship with this movie. Paul McGann is a brilliant doctor in it, but I wish they would have cast someone else as the Master.
Yeah,
and I really love Eric Roberts as an actor.
I love him as the Master. I think he's brilliant.
And the rabbi, he confirms, and the rabbi's watching in the chat here, the rabbi from another planet, my favourite of all the YouTubers, he's in the chat here, and he points out, and I have heard him talk about this, that it's Paul McGann who has often talked about all this faux Christ imagery that the Barnaby, you quite rightly mentioned there. That could have been where you've heard it talked about. So it maybe didn't come, I think it was always there in the design of it, but obviously McGann, he does mention it quite a lot. Who else have we got?
I think what Blue Bonnet just said there about it being a love-hate. There's a lot of Doctor Who fans that have a love-hate relationship with it. But one thing we're all united about is McGann, who just looked the part, even though he didn't feel it. And it's a shame, actually, going back to what we were saying before. Had it just been him from minute one, bang into the role, we would have had more of that performance, because he actually does the role justice by going through that whole who am I regeneration nonsense, which you should never really focus on, especially when you're bringing something back. But as I say, Russell learned from that and didn't do it with Eccleston. But it would have been just lovely to have it all about McGann.
Can I just
mostly about McGann.
Dan, what you said before about the Terminator references just flashed me. Yeah, him at the when he has the sunglasses on, the Master and the leather jacket, and he's there. Then he says, "The Asian child."
Wouldn't be allowed today. Wouldn't be allowed today.
So I get interesting thing, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that scene where he's talking to the nurse and a bit of his finger falls off.
That was licks it away just casually. I quite like that whole arc for that version of the Master, because it's a human body he's nicked. And it's decaying. I actually quite like that, because it keeps in touch with the whole Doctor Who ethos and the Master's character. And where would he have gone next? Would he have gone and perhaps nicked the body of an Edwardian nanny, for example? I don't know.
Has anybody seen Eric Roberts in interview? Because he's absolutely barking mad in the best possible way.
Do you know what though? Do you not think he's aged as well, in that he's actually become more? Because he was quite a heavy, sort of serious, sort of off-putting actor back in the 90s. But now he seems to have mellowed like people do when we get older. And he's far more open, isn't he?
Well, that seems like as good a place as any to cut to our famous ad break. So, here's a couple of minutes. Doctor Who TV movie-related goodies for you. So, is Eric Roberts slightly nuts? You have a look at this and you let us know what you think.
Well done.
So, here's your new doctor.
He's someone you turn to for help.
We're not looking for a high flyer, just someone who cares. Well, of course I do.
He's someone you trust with your life.
During your lifetime, your eyes will capture over 24 million images. To enable us to see exactly what you're seeing, every Vision Express eye examination is tailor-made. Our optometrists have over 100 different ways to assess how well your eyes are working. Come and see us. Vision Express. Never seen her so happy.
To think, he almost threw it all away.
Did you never make a mistake?
Yeah, I guess.
Wrong hand! Ah! Shoot me! Never seen her so happy.
To think.
Club Eagle Rider. Ever heard of these guys? For 29 bucks a month, you don't have to worry about your old lady nagging you about taking up space in the garage, because they give you the garage. It's 2017. I mean, guys nag more than girls these days, but who wants to ride alone? Eagle Rider. It's not just a boys' club, it's an everyone's club. Hey, how's that gym working out for you? It's a membership you'll actually use. Any bike, anywhere. You get a lot for 29 bucks a month, but most of it you won't even care about. So let's focus on the good stuff, the money-saving stuff. Ride every month and save about 5,000 bucks a year. It's the best of the best. I was in the sequel too. But don't take my word for it. Check it out for yourself. Are you excited? I'm excited. Keep the camera on me. I'm Eric Roberts, and I am Eagle Rider.
Oh, wonderful. Told you.
That was
So that was more scary than that was more scary than him as the master.
If you think that was bad, you should see the bits that I cut out.
There's a brilliant interview with Eric Roberts. It's the Real Times, the Mythmakers interview, and he's actually interviewed by Eliza, his wife, who of course plays his wife in the movie. It's his real life wife, and she interviews him for this Real Times picture, a video interview. She's the one that interviews him, and she clearly remembers far more about it than he does. He sits there like a rabbit caught in headlights the whole time, just going, "Yeah,
Oh, bless.
well, yeah." And
Looks like he had a link in
feeding
that.
him the lines. He's such a character.
Did
Love
he have
him.
a link?
Yeah, he's had a double knee replacement since then. Yeah.
Explains it then.
Well spotted. And we've got several comments in the chat here. We disavow this, obviously. Disavow this comment from the Third Doctor. Afternoon. Afternoon says Digby Strawbridge, arriving slightly late, but you can go back and catch the rest of the show. Yeah, give us a playback later on, and don't forget to like. Yeah, please like the video.
What was the first thing called? Was that an advert for a film? Was that a trailer? For
No, that was Paper Mask.
Oh, that was the film, wasn't it? It was a movie. Paper Mask.
It was a movie.
I remember.
1990?
Palace Pictures, around 89, 90. Yeah, certainly around that time.
He does have a wonderful voice, just Paul, doesn't he? That voice.
Yes.
So good, that voice.
I want to know what he was doing having a drink at Clive's house.
We haven't mentioned one person yet, and I feel that we should. Let's talk a little bit about Daphne Ashbrook, the main companion role of Dr. Grace Holloway, and she was again a young actress. She'd been in guest roles in just about every glossy action series of the time that you can name: Knight Rider, A-Team, Street Talk, all those shows, but lots of comedy too. She's very, very versatile. I understand that she's still versatile to this day, still turns up in things like NCIS, does a lot of work on the theatre, and she brings an elegance and yet a reality to it too. I think it's a very fine balance that she strikes here, playing Grace, a character that could be seen as quite corny, I suppose. This female doctor who's running from pillar to post, everybody's hero, but with the broken down love life and out of work and all these other cliches, like her life is crazy, and then the Doctor walks in. I really like what she did in this role. I think that it works as I think the last half of it is sort of a two-hander, Sarah, between the two of them. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I see so many, parallels to Modern Companions. I love a comedy. The scene where she thinks she's an absolute nutter and she's waiting for ambulance to come, and she just sat there going, yeah.
She's terrified, isn't she?
And she's. When I first watch it, she's beautiful. She's striking. That slow image of her running through the hospital in that gown made absolutely no sense, but she looked amazing. She's clever. She's strong. She stands up for what she believes in, and she's very much earned her place at the end. And I was very disappointed that she doesn't go with the Doctor at the end. But I love how she challenges him. When he says, "Come with me," and she says, "Well, come with me." Again, it's a very it just
beautifully
so
played.
Yeah.
She comes back in Big Finish.
Whatever.
And she's very, very good.
It's very
the
good.
Actress
I'd love to listen to her. Yeah.
Sadly, she doesn't play Grace, though, does she? She plays.
Well, they can't, can they?
But there's like relevance to it. There's like they talk about like Grace. There's no Grace here, and she's playing a different character, but that it's her, and there's like relations to it. And she's brilliant. She's in an episode called what's it called?
The Next Life, is it?
The Next Life. Yes.
Yeah. It's great stuff.
What I like about her as an actress is that she's really embraced Doctor Who, whereas she knew nothing about Doctor Who before. And she hadn't got the foggiest, she'd never heard of it. And she really embraced Doctor Who. And the fans, I mean, she just now goes to any convention she can get to. She just absolutely loves fandom, as does Yi So. They've both really bonded with fans and taken it on board, which is just great to see. And she is kind of barking mad. I mean, you can see there, she is again, just like Erin Roberts, she's clearly barking mad.
She is, but she's fabulous with it. I would use the term eccentric, but I don't know if we can actually call people from out with the United Kingdom eccentric. But you're absolutely right. And when she is with fans, she will spend as much time as possible. She's so vibrant and energetic, and she's a bit like Katie in the sense that bang, 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 it has to be everywhere. And wonderful. She's a lovely person to meet and hang around with. And by God, she does hang around with you. You will find her accessible at breakfast, lunch, evening meal, in the bar. I love her. I think she's got so much time, and she'll talk to you about anything. She's just, and it's lovely when you see her in a sort of lineup. You've got up to Ace, then you've got Grace, and then you've got Rose, and Daphne's fit in there is so good. It really is good.
She never feels like she's playing an identity, for example. Grace is a fully formed character, isn't she? And I don't think I've ever seen Daphne Ashbrook even interviewed. I must have somewhere. There's probably some stuff over on YouTube.
I think there's something on YouTube where they interview all of them, and it's
because they're all very active, aren't they? They clearly get on like a house on fire. I think this was just a few years ago, obviously because the console itself also survives. That's been restored, and that's on the convention circuit too. I can't remember the name of the gentleman, but it's got its own home and everything, looked after beautifully. But I love the fact that. Well, as you were saying, JT, there is no divide, is there, between the Katies? Katie is Doctor Who fandom's fairy godmother. We've said this on the show. And, maybe I think Daphne is part of the family too. Yi-Ji
definitely.
too. It seems like a lovely guy. From what I understand, he can be found at a lot of conventions where he finds a queue full of people sort of patiently waiting for a dealer's room, Simon, or to see a show. He'll pick up his guitar and play people a tune.
Yeah. There is a real, again, doing a bit of plugging here for real-time pictures, but there is a great Paul McGann DVD out that's got interviews with all of them on, he comes across as a really, really nice bloke who, again, as I say, has really embraced fandom and taken it to his heart, taken the parts to his heart, and really run with it. And that's another reason why you can't help but love this movie, really, because everybody that's in it, in a kind of way, had a rough time because they were making something that was kind of trying to be sort of maybe seen as a backdoor pilot, or wasn't. Or they didn't. There was a lot of stuff going on, and there were a lot of wranglings behind the scenes. It was a tough thing to make. It was not an easy make, and you couldn't blame any of them for kind of wanting ultimately to distance themselves from it, because it was seen as a failure. Whether it was or not is not open to debate, but it was seen as a failure. And so that's going to knock your confidence. So you wouldn't blame any of them for sort of saying, look, I don't want to talk about Doctor Who. I'm not talking about Doctor Who. But they don't. They all embrace it and they all run with it. And all credit to them.
But it also shows... Sorry, Dan. I was going to say it also shows how we, as fans, embraced the 1996 TV movie. Yes. That one-off, movie we did, and the fact that the cast and the crew are very much part of the family that we all talk about. They are part of it. They are integral to. I mean, I was there at McGann's very first convention appearance, and that was a shock. That was a surprise for him and for us. But that's where that whole thing sort of came through, and it was amazing. But they're still there today, and they are still. I remember reading an interview with Russell after the screening of the next Doctor that Christmas, and Seagal had seen that. Philip had seen that really? Episode, and had said when he bumped into Russell somewhere on in the world that they live in, he couldn't believe that McGann was included in the flashback, which is the first time there'd been a flashback in the modern version. And he said, "Oh, so he counts." And Russell had to turn around and say, "Of course he bloody counts.
Of course he counts.
He's the eighth incarnation of the Doctor." But that's where Philip was at that point. It shows you
Philip for coming to that conclusion, can you? Because in one of Russell T's things, he actually put in his script that they were discussing Doctor Who, and all the people around the table agreed that it wasn't part of canon. Do you remember that? I can't remember what show Russell T did. It was a Channel 4 show.
Oh, Queer as Folk. That was just the characters, though. That was the sort of in thing at the time from Vince, who was the Doctor as Queer as Folk. But I don't. That's nothing really to do with our show.
I think basically, as I said, I don't know about the fans that you guys knew, but the fans that I knew at that moment in time, they hated it with a passion.
So you were the lone voice. Yeah. You were the lone voice of positivity.
I was the lone voice. I was like, this is a good film.
It was the same experience. Most fans around me also hated it. Yeah. And I was sitting there thinking, I thought I quite liked that. Did I get it wrong? Did I see the wrong thing? Because I loved it.
I picked it up on, as JT said, I'd picked it up on tape too, on VHS. I think it was a week, maybe 10 days before. And obviously I watched it that night. I bought it from the shopping centre, got it back home, made a night of watching it. And that was quite bizarre because obviously at the time, there was no day-to-day Doctor Who community. In fact, everything about the TV movie, I heard about it by reading it on teletext, on teletext with a breakdown. That's where I heard about it, not in DWM. I could tell there was nobody around me who cared. Nobody gave a shit. And when I bought the VHS tape, I got nobody who wanted to watch it with me.
Oh, really?
I know, the world's smallest violin. I know. But no, it was still quite a small thing. My consumption of it in this whole time was a really personal thing for me, and a magic moment. And so watching that tape, and then that wait, JT, as you described, because it came out on tape. I think Canada did get it first, and then America, and then a fortnight later us. And the dust was already kind of settling on it, and word had got back to British shores that it it hadn't done that well, and it probably wasn't going to. But I'd shut all that down, and I was still watching. I was still kind of representing this show, because obviously when it was on TV, I knew that it was going to be viewed by the wider public, and people were aware that Doctor Who was coming back. They weren't necessarily aware for how long. They just saw the decks being cleared on a bank holiday Monday, which is usually the kind of treatment that they'd give to the latest Star Trek movie, whatever else they'd got the rights to, the latest Indiana Jones movie, whatever it was. So they cleared the schedule. They were trailering it. There were posters. Yeah, I was up HMV begging the poor girls to put the posters aside from when I've still got those too. And I didn't tell anybody about that either. You know, the people I worked with, I didn't let on to them, although I was a Doctor Who fan, Barnaby. Because again, I wouldn't say it didn't have any cultural echo, but I think that even though the X-Files was popular and we were right in the middle of sort of Voyager and DS9, Ian, we were still a way away from being the culture of the mega geek that we all celebrate now.
I know. I just like to say, right, at that moment in time, right, and I've said this before on it, they used to have this bar in Victoria called the Star Trek bar, right? Okay. And that's where I met all the geeks and stuff, because in those days there was no internet, there was no, you know, and so I'd go to the Star Trek bar to watch DS9, have a beer and stuff, and all these fans of Star Trek would be there. But not only were they talking about Star Trek, they're talking about Doctor Who as well. And when I say that most of the fans didn't like that film, that was the point when I was in the bar and I met all my friends and we were drinking, and I said, that Doctor Who film was really good. And every one of them stuck a beer at me because they thought it was absolutely terrible.
They just turned on you, did they?
I mean, I have to agree, and I know what you're talking about, because you know, the people I were hanging around with, the Doctor Who fans, we were all very mixed. I mean, I came away from that night we watched it on the VHS, which I think was around about the time it was being broadcast in America and Canada. I think that's why the BBC Rush released it out first, so that, you know, because there was a big furore over here of they're getting it before us again, second time in Doctor Who's history. But you know, I came away going, yeah. And then others were going, and others were going, it was very mixed. It was a very mixed time for the reception of it. But again, through age, we've embraced it. We love McGann. You know, we've got the look of it. We can praise it now. I mean, it's 25 years on. And, you know, what was going on at the time, I think, again, we had high expectations. You have to look at it from what had happened from 1989 and 1990 onwards. The expectations for this thing, from a British point of view, was massive, because we'd been through so much by that point. We'd heard so much. We'd had casting every other bloody week in the Daily Star. You know, we'd heard things from various people about what was going on. Spielberg. I mean, we'd been through so much. The expectation was way up here. And then to be given this 90-minute thing, I can understand why a lot of people went, no.
Yeah.
And then the kissing and the half-human thing didn't help.
Yeah, I don't get it at all. I don't get why anybody would look at that and feel they'd sort of been cheated in the slightest. I think the only thing that I would change about it really is that I think is a shame is the fact that they broadcast it, as you've said, Dan, on a May bank holiday Monday. It should have been on at Christmas. That absolutely was a Christmas film. And I think had you put that out, had they,
ratings,
I think had they sort of just held their nerve a little bit and held that over till Christmas for both America and the US, I think it would have been a very, very different story, because it just literally reeks. Obviously, it's set at Christmas, for God's sake, but it just feels, as we've said before now, Doctor Who sort of feels autumnal and wintry, and this film really feels it's wrong on a sunny bank holiday Monday evening.
Yeah, but it was a Fox TV. It was a Fox TV movie, though. It was going to be on at that particular point of year. So the BBC couldn't hold it over that long.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking in an ideal situation. I'm not. I know it was on when it was on. They wanted to rush it out for reasons. I get that. What I'm saying is, I think it's just a shame that happened and it didn't go on. It wasn't held over till Christmas, because I think it could have.
Wasn't it up against something else, Simon?
It was up against Roseanne in America, and here we didn't have anything here.
The last episode of Roseanne, as I recall, in America. So it was a huge episode. It was never going to do any good in America. And again, you kind of question why they literally put it out there to sink in.
Well,
they knew it was going to sink against Roseanne.
Apparently, I've since read that they never expected it to do great numbers against Roseanne. anyway that the way that because all of those channels, as I expect Ian will know, and anybody who spent time in the States will know, all of the big networks had their own specific night of the week where they would air their TV movies. All the big networks, I don't know if they still do, had that line of totally in-house produced TV movies with a stable of directors and more often than not writers. And so they had measured expectations of it, and apparently they were actually quite pleased with it. And the real reason why they didn't actually make any more came more down to the fact that Universal had to decide they'd already got a similar sci-fi show that was doing quite well, that had taken a couple of, I think it was, say, 2 seasons in to establish itself. They were allocating budget and they were thinking, okay, well, do we go with this new show with this established lead, which we know has got a certain amount of audience, or do we persevere with Sliders, which has carved itself out an audience, was doing pretty well in the ratings, and which they were already exporting all over the world? And apparently that was the decision, that it was fairly cut and dried like that, Doctor Who or Sliders. And this was only come to light in, I think, the last 7 or 8 years. In fact, I think it was Daphne Ashbrook that said it in an interview, so I must have seen her interviewed. Yeah. Daphne Ashbrook talked about it, that it was that simple. Sliders or Doctor Who, they went Sliders.
The guy who played the guy played Lee, was that the name of the
Shang-Li?
Shang-Li, he was in Sliders. Yeah.
Oh, see. It's filmed in Vancouver. Yeah, it was basically filmed in the same. It used a lot of the same resources, approximately the same sort of budget. I understand a lot of the same directors and all that sort of stuff. It's a cracking little show. Very spirited. Very spirited production. We have people in the chat here that have chimed in a little later, so I want to say a quick hello to the talons of Wayne Chiang. He says, "Evening all," and that his name's not actually Wayne. That's like finding out about Santa all over again. And he's also said, "What's all that kissing about, though?" Well, we've done the kissing. So you come in late, go back and watch this video, rewatch it later on, send the link to your friends, share us wherever you like, share us around in celebration of the 25th anniversary of the TV movie. We had a brilliant time talking about it, and I think people will have a brilliant time listening to it as well. Who else is here?
We have to say as well that on that May the 27th, back of that bank holiday, the BBC were very brave with broadcasting it when they did, because they actually showed it at 8:30, according to my Radio Times here, as I look back. 8:30 in the evening till 5 to 10. That must have been one of the latest at that point.
Yeah, because I remember I was allowed to stay up because it was a bank holiday Monday.
Oh, that's so cute. You were 11, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good God! I think I watched it because I watched it on tape. I think the bank holiday, I think I was in the pub and I only just made it back, to see it on the TV. But most of my friends did watch it. You know what? I think that some of them watched it because they expected it to be shit and wanted to have a go at me about it afterwards and to take the piss. And a couple of them were really disappointed at how slick it actually was. And it did have going for them.
It had that sort of X-Files gloss to it, didn't it? That was around at that time. It fitted in very much with that whole X-Files sort of thing. I have a friend who's very big on the X-Files. She loved the X-Files. She watched every single one, even to its dying day, and then the rehash when it came back. And she watched that Doctor Who, and even she liked it.
That's that. We wanted that though. Or any fan wants Doctor Who to be treated properly, and this was the only time at that moment in time that it got treated well, and all I can say is it's about bloody time, and that's why I was happy with it. That's why I was happy with it. So.
Mark, the infinitely tired, here chimes in with something controversially, and I don't know how you'll feel about this. No American should touch Doctor Who. This is, it is distinctly British. I agree with Mark on that. I don't know if I agree about no American touching Doctor Who, but I know I agree with Mark. Feel that way.
I agree with Mark. It's a British show. It's a British product. It should always stay in Britain.
Yeah, maybe.
Wayne's got back to us. He said, "Will do. I'll get settled in with a hot chocolate for the rewatch." I don't blame it. Yes,
that sounds nice.
Been good. It does. I could go with some of that.
And a chocky as well. So,
Look at that. Look at this. See that? This was everywhere in 1996.
That's the exact keyring that I've got. The exact
We all got it.
Love it.
It was absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
And JT,
That's
I don't know about
the,
you.
focus
I
symbol, isn't
used
it?
mine.
It's the
Yeah.
From the planet.
Well,
Mine.
I had 4, and this is the last one I've got because I used 2, and they snap very easily.
Yeah.
And the other one I gave away.
Mine's on a new chain. So yeah, mine's.
I never thought that.
But I always use that. I'm back to using it again now after like a 10 or 12 year break. But one of the reasons why I like it is how discreet that symbol is, because at the time nobody knew that it was a Doctor Who related thing. You see,
Well,
I could remain in the closet for a little while.
Let me show you. This was from the Radio Times. This bit here. And this is some of the merchandise that you could get back in '96.
Oh wow, I remember that.
That was the best one. I went through 3 of them, which I no longer have. That's a record bag.
I'd buy that now. I'd definitely buy that.
Much better.
Now that is very Ian, isn't it? The cap is very Ian.
Yeah.
There's any time travelers out there want to send Ian one of those.
I gotta get one of them.
Do.
I gotta get one of them. Yeah.
It was $6.99, Ian, for the baseball cap. The record bags were $14.99, and the watch was $29.95.
Oh, that was a lot of money for a watch in those days.
Yeah.
I've got it here.
Look, I even got it here.
Look at that.
You even got it here.
I'll just show you.
That's beautiful.
Oh, wow.
I've never seen one of those
Lucky
before.
bastard, JT.
That's really nice.
Yeah, and beautiful. And McGann's box was on everything. So
I've got a little box full of all my sort of TV movie related. Well, some of my TV movie related things here. So I've got postcard books. There's a script book. There's the original novel. There's the tape. And there's like packs of postcards that Forbidden Planet did. So there's little things like
they're
that.
lovely. Yeah.
And the Paul McGann reading the novel there, which I think I've only ever played once. That's just been re-released. But this, yes, the soundtrack CD, the score by John Debney, yes, who went on to work on Stargate. There we are. Yes, so this is one of my favourite. I don't know about you, JT, but this is one of my favourite items of merchandise from the TV movie. Along
it is
with
a really
this
good score,
amazing
actually, yeah.
book.
Yeah,
brilliant.
It is wonderful.
Absolutely gorgeous.
I also recommend people pick up Doctor Who Regeneration, which I think is one of the seminal Doctor Who books of all time. One of the top 10 Doctor Who books ever written by Gary Russell, but with Philip Segal there. Full colour, luxurious, warts on all the making of the TV movie. Essential reading, I would say. I definitely catch that. As we said earlier on, 9 million people, I've got the figures here, 9 million people watched Doctor Who the movie on BBC One that night on a bank holiday Monday. That's a whopping 75%, Ian, of the audience share. 75% in the VHS. That sold really, really well and did for a number of months, I understand.
Huge. Yeah. Yes, it
The
did.
movie eventually got repeated. All sorts
I remember
of
going to Forbidden Planet and after the day after the film, going in there and saying hello to the guy behind the bar, and he just said, "Did you see Dr. Who?" And it was rubbish, he said to me as I was walking towards the comment. You know, as I'm saying, there was a real hate for it. I didn't understand the hate at all. I really didn't.
Imagine something that was 9 million would be considered a failure.
Yeah.
Oh well, it wasn't, Sarah. I mean, the BBC were delighted with that because it was one of the highest rated shows of the entire year. And it was Doctor Who, the thing they had written off, basically, you know. And as I say, it then had an effect. The TV movie helped Doctor Who to be awarded the best drama in the BBC TV 60 Years Awards later that year. But you know, the whole thing about it as well was there was no repeat, there was no playback. You know, it was that night only. You saw it that night, and then that was it. Unless you spent $14.99 on a video, that was it. So 9 million. Was huge, and well done to everybody that worked on that show and promoted that show and did everything with the marketing and the merchandise that suddenly took off again. I mean, that's a colossal feat.
Shame they didn't play it again. A real shame.
It did get a repeat, I think, maybe 2 years later as part of Doctor Who Night.
Yeah, it was 99. I think Doctor
99.
Who.
Yeah,
a couple of repeats, and I think that UK Gold and various other channels it's turned up there, and of course it lives on. You know, you can pick it
it's
up.
On in my heart.
Watch it on the push of a button now. Yeah, I think it's on BritBox. I think it's on the BritBox and whatever else. Yes. Yeah. So but as you rightly said, Ian, we didn't get a full TV appearance for the 8th Doctor. We're still waiting. A lot of people still demanding it.
Shame.
The network passed, and Siegel's plans for more, it put them all on ice permanently, and the Doctor Who rights situation got more and more complicated. That wouldn't last forever, of course. And all this, even though there was that sort of canonicity of the movie, that was a thorny subject within fandom for a little while. I think now it is recognised as one of the more memorable key points in Doctor Who's on screen history. And Paul McGann would return to the role of the Doctor. And I'd say now in 2021, when they talk about Paul McGann, when his name gets dropped in newspapers about other roles that he's taken now, he's always listed, named as former Doctor Who or Doctor Who star. Mm-hmm. He is as synonymous with this role as almost anybody else that I can name. Doctor Who is available. Bring him back. Well, bring him back on Blu-ray. Doctor Who, the movie, is available on DVD, Blu-ray, and the novel has recently been republished by BBC Books under this new Target imprint. It's in a revised form too by the original writer, Gary Russell. He's gone into it because at the time he wrote the original one, he only had a rough version of the script. I think he'd seen a rough version of one scene. So it's quite different to that which was on screen. He's gone back in there, tightened it, polished it, added some bits and taken other bits away. So that's not long come out. And you've got the Blu-ray available. I'm sure that it'll join the official box set collection of Blu-rays at some point in the future, Simon, and we can rave about that. I think treble, quadruple dip, it's the same old story, just like the 5 Doctors. I've bought it so many times. It's practically painful. I was wondering, we're going to go around everybody now before we wrap up. What do you think is the most positive thing that the Doctor Who movie has brought and left the Doctor Who universe with, Simon?
I think it perfectly bridges the gap between Survival and Rose. That's what I think it's gifted. If you imagine that the movie was not there and Survival went in at 89 and we never got anything until Rose in 2005, the wilderness years would be utterly devastating, whereas actually you have got that little beacon right in the middle of the wilderness years that bridges the gap, that is the missing link in Doctor Who. So that's what it does for me. It's perfect from that point of view. It does the job perfectly.
Sarah, you've watched it again this afternoon. What struck you about it this watch? Which scene stood out, or which moment do you think has stood the test of time this 25 years?
Oh, most of it, actually. I just found it a complete joy to watch. I'm picking out the little kisses. I said, and again, like Simon was saying, I think it gave us Rose. Obviously, RTD had this in mind. And, obviously I wouldn't be here now talking to you guys without that. So to me it is like that precursor to Rose, and I just think it's wonderful. I love watching it.
How about you, Ian? What you still those people like your brother? Has your brother ever come round to it? And do you still like the film? What do you think works the best about it now?
As I said, Simon and Starry, I said exactly what I was thinking as well. Well, the film is way beyond its time, okay, right? And at that moment in time when Doctor Who was screened, everybody was like this with Doctor Who. Oh, it should be like this and it should be like that. Oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. And it's all bollocks, really. And with anything, it has to grow. It has to evolve. And the reason why I was so pleased with it, because to me, that film about Doctor Who had grown. He'd taken a step from there, and now he's gone to here. And it's better here, in my opinion. That's what I thought. I liked that he was handsome. I liked that he kissed the girl. I liked that Doctor Who was finally growing up, and I liked the gloss of it at that moment in time, obviously, because the new Who is glossy, especially in Matt Smith stuff. And I just liked where it was going. It was a shame that most people around me thought it was absolute bollocks, but I didn't, because I knew better.
It's still a very pretty film, and I think that that side to me, the designer side to me, really appreciates that. I don't think it looks 25 years old. I still view this as somehow we've had 12 series since, and I still feel that this is new somehow, Barnaby. Speaking of somebody who, as you keep reminding us, didn't see it at the time, you've got the Doctor there with you. You've literally got the T-shirt. But what do you think is the most lasting positive thing about this movie?
Oh, I wouldn't say positive, but the lasting image in my mind is Sylvesteros screaming on the operating table, being cut open. Positives, though, that TARDIS interior, it's beautiful, and I just love that that's canon, and just so much love that was just put into that. The oak, the books, the Gothic architecture is just, it made me just re-fall in love with that kind of thing again. And the music as well. I really love the score and the soundtrack from that as well. It was really high octane and big, and that all of that particular.
It's
been. What happened to JT? It's gone.
Oh. I think the Master's got him. I think that's. Oh no, he's back.
He's back. Excellent.
Also, this is an ambulance. I remember that bit.
What's your favourite moment from the TV movie then, JT? What, have you got a favourite scene or just a lasting something that you feel has lasted the most?
Well, yeah, just for an answer to that as well, I saw Darren had put up there that he was a bit naughty and he sold the videos in his comic shop for the fans before the actual. I was there at midnight here in Britain to get my copy of the VHS because certain stores, our price HMV had opened at midnight, so you could get you could be one of the. I was there in the line.
That was one of the first examples I remember hearing of. That was one of the first examples of that I remember hearing, like pre-Star Wars, before it became really, really popular. Yeah, it's
absolutely, and it worked because it was great. What is my lasting thing?
Yep.
Well, my lasting thing is Paul McGann. It's Paul McGann. Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's incredible, isn't he?
Fun bit of trivia, actually. Fun bit of trivia with that ambulance line. Eric Roberts was in a film about a killer ambulance that stalks him and tries to kill him.
He was
an ambulance.
It's called The Ambulance, and I really recommend everyone go and watch it.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it's a crack show.
To get hold of that, that could be a subject for a Type 40 in the future, everybody, either here or on the podcast. Yeah, but happy 25 years to the TV movie. It's been wonderful to talk about it all with you guys, to relive it, and it's never a chore to go back to this film. I was never sad about this movie, even when we did think that it may be the very last Doctor Who that was ever made. That turned out not to be the case, thankfully. But I wouldn't be without Doctor Who the movie for anything. And just Paul McGann's Doctor, really. I feel that character, due to not just what's done in the TV movie, but everything that's been done in Big Finish since. Strong foundations, and it's almost as if he was never away. There was never any distance between him and us, and I'm so grateful to Philip Segal more than anybody else for persevering with the entire project. The man was an unapologetic geek, of hard-working professional man, but he's very much one of us. And I say happy birthday to you too, Philip. In fact, I was going to say, if you're watching, if you're not watching, I want to know why not. I'm going to try and send him the link. He's bound to be on Twitter. I'd like him to see this, to see the love coming your way for your film 25 years on. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody that's watched along in the live chat or on Facebook and commented. We've got some great comments this time. People joining us and raising up Paul McGann's Doctor. People who love the interior of the TARDIS. That I've met very few people who don't like that. There was one guy earlier on who said he didn't like it. I can't remember. But that's very much the outlier there. Yeah, you can't please everybody, can you? But it does seem to be plenty of people's favourites. We'll be back with another Type 40 Live soon. In the meantime, come and check out our playlists here on the Spacebook channel, or our podcasts on the dedicated home for Type 40, type40.podbean.com. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, TuneIn, and everywhere else, wherever you can get your podcasts, or on the Podbean app. That's so easy to use. Even I can use it. Here on YouTube, the world's largest streaming platform, you can take in all our content, whether it's audio, video, or both. More Type 40 Live. There's 2 full seasons of this stuff to catch up on, where a lot of us and some of our friends and guests ramble about various Doctor Who topics and news and new releases and all that stuff's coming back on the next show. So don't miss that. If you're feeling really brave and have more time on your hands than you probably care to admit, go and join us in the Type 40 Facebook group over there. 5 years old this summer and still a tolerant home for fans of all ages, sharing and posting about classic and new Doctor Who. Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody, and thanks for listening. And thank you to everybody on the panel, to JT, to Barnaby, to Ian, to Sarah, and to Simon for sharing this birthday party. I didn't think to get a cake, but the master would only have eaten it, wouldn't he? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this show. We'll be back again next week with more. And before I go, Kenny couldn't make it today. Kenny was our guest. We're going to get him on at some point. We know that he wants to be here. But we'll get back in touch with Kenny. We'll make sure that he's on at some point because, he really is. He's the man when it comes to the 8th Doctor, I feel. Yes, thanks, Dan. Thanks, panel. Thanks, everybody. And thanks to you for watching. Thanks for your comments. Throw the video a like, please, and share it along if you can. That does wrap us up for now. Thanks, everybody, for your time. Meet us back here on the Facebook channel for more Type 40 Live next week. Where's my little video?
Bye, Facebookers.